Number 10. Gina Carano. Gina was slowly building a name for herself in the early 2010s as a woman to be feared on screen, portraying characters like Riley Hicks in the Fast and Furious franchise, and her most recent role as Cara Dune in The Mandalorian, a series that has decided to move on without Ms. Carano on set, for the simple fact that she is just very misguided on her views towards everything in existence. In 2021, Carano made a series of politically charged social media posts, the most damning of which came when she compared modern American political polarization to camps in Germany in 1945. Those are very different things. She has also mocked the usage of face coverings during 2020 and was one of the many celebrities who were claiming voter fraud following Donald Trump's loss during election time. To throw the cherry on top of the trash sundae she was making, Gina also made her opinions on pronouns known, claiming that hers were beep boop beep boop. Yeah, well hey, beep this out. You, Gina! All of this combined eventually culminated in the hashtag #FireGinaCarano on Twitter, which began trending fast, forcing Disney as well as her management company to cut their ties with Gina. Needless to say, The Mandalorian is doing just fine without her, and the rest of Hollywood is glad that she dug herself into a deep, dark, cringy grave. Number 9. Shia LaBeouf. Shia has been a controversial celebrity over the years for sure, becoming famous as one of the hardest people to work with in Hollywood history. Like many bad apples in LA, Shia got his start on the Disney Channel. At the turn of the century, Disney released a little show called The Even Stevens. The series followed the titular Stevens family with a focus on the kids Ren and Louis, played by Christy Romano and Shia LaBeouf. The show is considered to be one of Disney's best, spanning 3 seasons and spawning an Even Stevens movie that is still one of the greatest pieces of cinema ever released. These days, Shia has adopted more of a mountain man look. He always looks like he's got a big bushy beard whenever he can, and he has gone from bright and youthful to just tired and annoyed. I feel that, man. Following the show's end, Shia kept his acting career going strong, appearing in much-loved classics like Holes as main character Stanley Yelnats, but it wasn't until his casting in the live-action Transformers series that he began to descend into madness. Since 2007, Shia's behavior as both an actor and a person has been getting worse and worse. His fellow actors have reported that Shia takes method acting way too far and smells terrible on set, not to mention the several public art displays that he gifted the world in the mid-2000s. Oh, and who could forget his passionate, motivational video where he told us that nothing was impossible and we could just do it? While he may still be working today, he's usually the one that's like backing the projects he's in. In the eyes of Hollywood and, well, from most of us, Shia canceled himself the minute he stood in front of a green screen and yelled at the top of his lungs, "Do it! Nothing is impossible!" Number 8. DaBaby. The rapper formerly known as Baby Jesus, and I will always remind you of that because that is a weird fact. DaBaby has always had a bad boy streak in the music industry. He's known for dropping some choice expletives on stage all the time, and even makes fun of his fans right to their faces. This unfortunately culminated in him deciding that it was appropriate to joke about a certain disease that's unnecessarily linked to the gay community. On stage, he told his fans to put up their cell phones if they didn't have any STIs. Honestly, he said a lot of weird stuff before saying the words "put your phones in the air" like he was playing some kind of a massive game of Guess Who. It's like, alright, if you have brown hair, put your hand down. It's just weird. Just don't do that to people. Of course, he was torn to shreds by the LGBTQ+ community, including icons Elton John, Madonna, and one of his collaborators, Dua Lipa. Not only did he cancel himself, but he was actually set to release a clothing line with fashion brand Boohoo Man, but they backed out following the public outcry. To top it all off, 2 of his biggest performances set to take place at Lollapalooza and a concert in Atlanta were canceled amid the flurry of complaint calls and emails that the venue had been receiving. DaBaby actually called himself canceled on Twitter, joking about the whole situation while just one single tear rolled down his face. Number 7. James Franco. James has placed himself in a little bubble of public exile for using his powers for evil. The man behind some iconic characters like his portrayal as the real-life filmmaker Tommy Wiseau, or his role as Harry Osborn in the original Spider-Man trilogy, or just so many more. He seemed to be on the way to a long, successful career following multiple collaborations with longtime friend Seth Rogen, as well as his turn in more serious roles like True Story as a man on death row telling his tale of woe to a writer played by Jonah Hill. Apparently though, James has a problem keeping his hands to himself, especially when it comes to his acting students. In 2018, 5 female students at his Studio 4 acting school in North Hollywood told the Los Angeles Times that Franco had parlayed his position to exploit them physically. 2 of those women sued, and Franco was forced to settle outside of court and fork over $2.23 million. At that time, he was writing, acting, and directing a show for HBO called The Deuce, which, he was allowed to stay on and finish because, hey, it was being cancelled anyway. Not only did fans call for the cancellation of the series, but the public outcry forced Seth Rogen to drop his longtime pal, telling the Times of London that the scandal had changed their relationship and he had no plans to collaborate with James anytime in the near future. So there's a simple lesson to this one, folks. If you don't want to cancel yourself, keep your hands to yourselves. Number 6, Chrissy Teigen. Chrissy canceled herself by being the meaniest, bobiniest woman on the internet. In May of 2020, an individual by the name of Courtney Stodden, a pageant model and media personality, claimed that fellow model and media star Chrissy Teigen had publicly bullied them online for years. Chrissy was accused of regularly tweeting that she wished Courtney would just take a permanent dirt nap, or straight up just end herself. Find a bridge and just Apparently Chrissy harbored some kind of jealousy towards Courtney's success and decided to take it online instead of, just not publicizing her personal problems. Chrissy quickly apologized for the tweets and DMs, which were sent as recently as 2019. In one of her last posts, she tweeted, "I'm sad and mortified at who I used to be. I was an insecure, attention-seeking troll, and I'm ashamed and completely embarrassed at my behavior. But that is nothing compared to how I made Courtney feel." Chrissy then decided to delete her social medias, because that makes you look good, following a slew of backlash of her actions, eventually leading to her being fired or leaving any job that she had both on and off the screen. Next time, Chrissy, just keep your jealousy balled up deep inside of you like the rest of us, eh? Maybe you'd still have a career. Just maybe. Just a little bit. Number 5. Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen had one of the most successful daytime talk shows of all time until 2020. Her show became overwhelmed with accusations of toxic work environment from former employees. They were claiming that Ellen's happy exterior was nothing more than a facade put in place to keep the audience on her team. A small bit of proof came when she accused 50 Shades of Grey actress Dakota Johnson of not inviting her to a birthday party a few months prior. Dakota reminded her that she had in fact sent an invitation and received a notice from her producer that said that she didn't want to attend. Fans began questioning the awkward moment, and the cracks in her appearance grew bigger and bigger. Eventually, an article was released containing testimonies from several former employees, with too many stories to have been a false narrative. Ellen canceled herself by denying every single thing that she was being accused of instead of just acknowledging her faults and missteps as a boss. Instead, Ellen's fans took to Twitter demanding that she respond to the articles and the claims that she was herself a short-tempered tyrant. Well, she didn't respond as you may think with like a public apology, no. Instead, she was forced to cancel both herself and her show amid the controversy and has been on a hiatus ever since. Oh well, more time for Kelly Clarkson. Number 4, J.K. Rowling. Alright, all you Harry Potter fans, cover your ears because this one sucks. J.K. Rowling is known for being the author of the much-loved Harry Potter book series that was eventually adapted into 7 gloriously magical movies and Order of the Phoenix. In June 2020, Rowling retweeted an op-ed piece that discussed people who menstruate, apparently taking issue with the fact that the article did not use the word women. She tweeted, "People who menstruate. I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Woman, wimpund, womud." Oh man, every time I read that, the steam comes out of my ears. I don't like this woman. While this tweet garnered massive amounts of backlash from fans, Rowling doubled down on her views in more detail. She tweeted out, "If gender isn't real, there is no same-gender attraction. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of gender removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives." Okay. She went on to say she respected trans people's right to live any way that feels authentic to them. At the same time, "My life has been shaped by being a female." She then claimed that it wasn't wrong to speak the truth and be proud of your opinions, but hey, yeah, it is. Everyone in the world called JK out for her comments and views, with the live-action Harry Potter stars even taking to Twitter to call out her behavior and stand with the trans community. JK's publishers dropped her from their rosters, and the future of her writing career has gone up in smoke like it was straight out of the Death Eater's bum-bum. If she had just kept her opinions to herself, maybe The Cursed Child would be an awesome movie instead of an okay play. Just saying, JK, go away, let us do stuff with your properties, please. Number 3, Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle dominated the comedy scene in the 1990s and early 2000s. His stand-up was considered to be the most gut-busting and entertaining around, and his role in films like The Nutty Professor, Robin Hood Men in Tights, and the cult classic Half-Baked made him a massive star. He took a bit of a break from starring in films to focus on his family life and his true passion, stand-up comedy. Despite being on stage for over 12 years though, Dave never really learned to follow suit with the times. There were just, certain topics that have become rude to joke about, and many jokes considered to be funny in the 80s and 90s just haven't aged well. Oh, who'da thunk it? Well, unfortunately, that seems to be all the material that Dave has. In one of his most recent Netflix specials, Dave decided that it was his time and his stage and he could do whatever he wants. So apparently what he wanted to do was make fun of the LGBTQ+ community, spewing trash jokes not worth quoting or repeating or looking up. So if you're curious how bad it was, let me just sum it up by saying they were rough enough to have Dave's fans turn on him immediately. Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos actually defended the comedian, claiming that he had artistic freedom even after a group of Netflix employees and transgender advocates staged a virtual walkout. He later apologized and said that he handled the situation poorly. Oh, poor Ted accidentally supporting a bigot. Number 2, Will Smith. Whoa, Will Smith canceled himself? How? Yeah, I'm just kidding. We all know this one by now. In 2022, Chris Rock was hosting the 94th annual Oscar ceremony when he decided to make a little joke about Jada Pinkett Smith and her hair loss. Rock expressed his excitement to see Jada in a fictional G.I. Jane movie. Immediately following the joke, which landed for everybody else in the audience, Rock stood in confusion as Will Smith made his way to the stage. Will adjusted his jacket, he took a firm, strong stance, and then he just clocked Chris right in the face. He winded up his hand first to conjure the ultimate amount of force. It was kind of impressive. Initially being seen as a planned joke between the two, Will then began shouting several times at Rock to keep his wife's name out of his freaking mouth. Chris handled the situation well. He kept his cool, he laughed it off for the cameras, and he brought out the next award presenter. He was a gem, he did it so well. He was professional and quick to get the night back on track. Unfortunately though, an hour later, Will Smith won the Oscar for Best Actor in a Leading Role. He played Richard Williams, the father of tennis superstars Venus and Serena Williams. During his speech, he gave a half-hearted apology for his actions before claiming the situation was due to his months of portraying the father on set, leaving him with an extreme paternal sense to protect his family. Unfortunately for Will, that slap was enough to get him banned from the Oscars. On top of that, he seemingly canceled himself, now being seen as an aggressive man with no impulse control. He was fired from upcoming projects, and he currently sits at home all day polishing his one and only Oscar next to a single candle in the darkest room of his mansion. And at number 1, Kanye West. Hey look, it's Canceled McGee! Man, I love Kanye West. Whenever it comes to the worst celebrities that have ruined their own careers, this guy is always gonna be number 1. Now, I've written a small poem inspired by Dr. Seuss just to remind the viewers at home exactly what Kanye did to get canceled. So, here we go. Ye was a rapper who lived in LA. He decided to ruin his rep though one day. He typed and he clicked to his little heart's content. He said racist stuff. He needed to vent. He posted to Twitter to share all his woes. The world said no thank you, it's time that he goes. He was canceled and soiled his semi-good name. He chose anger and hate over fortune and fame. His clothes all got burned and his wife left his home. No more sponsors, no more Kim. Kanye was alone. What was worse still, keeping Ye in the dumps? His only friend got arrested. Poor Donald Trump. Number 10, Taylor Swift. Taylor's tyranny of torment must end now. Taylor Swift has made a name for herself as a person who thrives on the ending of a relationship. Since the late 2000s, Taylor has been making millions in the music industry. Her songs like Love Story and 22 are anthems to many. The catchy tunes tend to come from a place of so-called heartache, however. Taylor has thanked her exes on several occasions for inspiring the songs that made her who she is today. People like Tom Hiddleston, Harry Styles, Jake Gyllenhaal all have had a part to play in the inception of some bops. The argument can and should be made that Taylor needs to just chill already. She's made several songs that were good without the need to berate an ex, and some of those songs that are about exes are revealing. Imagine if after every breakup you've ever had, a song just pops up on your phone by U2 called Why They Left You. Number 9, Chris Pratt. Maybe you know him. Star-Lord. Chris Pratt has had a massive, successful career since first starring as the lovable Andy Dwyer on the hit mockumentary series Parks and Recreation. Since then, he starred in blockbuster giants like the Jurassic Park trilogy, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he's even the voice of Mario now. This guy is unstoppable. Well, hopefully that's not true. You see, Chris was almost a part of the infamous Me Too movement, but he somehow escaped our radar. In 2013, Chris was involved with an organization called the Hillsong Church. This megachurch is known for being notoriously anti-LGBTQ+. The church's former leader, Brian Houston, actually went public with their stupid, idiotic, and just wrong beliefs, but we don't need to get into that. While it was only ever rumored that he was involved with the controversial group, it was confirmed by his ex-wife and fellow actor Anna Faris he certainly wasn't against their beliefs. She claimed that Chris didn't deny specifically being involved with the church until 2022 because he didn't want to throw a church under the bus. hey man, they might have done some pretty shady stuff, so why don't you just toss them under that bus as hard as you can. Number 8, Ariana Grande. She's got one less problem without you, and honestly we'd probably be fine without her too. Ariana rose to fame on the hit Nick series Victorious before spinning off and becoming a pop singing sensation. While she may be a good girl and good impressionist on screen, just ask Jimmy Fallon, behind the scenes she's reportedly cold, quiet, and much like Taylor Swift, she just hates on her exes through song. When she broke up with Saturday Night Live alumni Pete Davidson, she released a song called Pete Davidson, blatantly singing about and trashing her ex-fiance. The song made her a lot of money, which Pete received nothing of. So like, hey man, if you're gonna trash someone, at least give them a little bit of the cheddar, you know? On top of this, her behavior in general has just been chaotic. She once left a meet and greet because she didn't like the way that the photos were turning out. Those people paid hundreds of dollars and she was just like, ha, thank you, next. In 2015, a video surfaced of Ariana visiting a California donut shop, and the owners were beyond excited to see her until she started licking donuts and putting them back on the shelves. According to the shop owners, those donuts were never paid for and they actually had to be thrown away. But like, come on, they really should have like preserved some of those and sold them online because hey, people are weird. This incident alone got her nixed from performing at a White House event despite multiple public apologies. The darkest of stories though comes from a Hollywood insider that has not been confirmed to be 100% true, but it might be. The man in question was working with Ariana at a signing event. She was all smiles until the event was over and they entered the elevator. According to them, her first words as the doors closed were, "I hope they all frickin' perish." Well, kinda makes you realize why Nick stars aren't as popular when they're adults. Number 7, Russell Crowe. The Gladiator star and newest addition to the world of mythology in the MCU, playing Zeus, Russell has had a steady career filled with blockbuster paychecks and fans galore. But according to several sources, the Pope's exorcist has quite the temper. In 2005, he made headlines for throwing a cell phone at a Mercer Hotel employee in New York City. Apparently he found out that it was broken and he threw it without looking, and it exploded on impact. That incident ended up being taken a bit far, but that was not the only example of his escapades. In 2016, he returned to the media circuit, this time facing charges of alleged violence towards rapper Azealia Banks. That dissolved into a he said she said situation that was settled outside of court. Crowe has also made a mess on set in his early days. A producer on the film Gladiator claims that Crowe became furious and violent when he discovered just how much the producer's assistant was being paid. The situation forced the producer, Bronco Lustig, to quit the production. While many fans loved Crowe in Gladiator, the people on set, that's a different story entirely. His career is slowly on the decline, so who knows, maybe he'll throw a phone at someone that he shouldn't and finally get cancelled for good. Number 6, Rihanna. According to some of her fans, Rihanna's a rude lady. Fans shared their story of a co-worker who experienced firsthand just how cold Rihanna can be. They told insiders that they won free tickets and backstage passes from a radio concert. When it came time for the co-worker and her kids to meet Rihanna, she was sitting at her makeup booth and refused to face them. When the young fans asked if they could get her autograph, she instructed a nearby backup dancer to just forge a signature before shooing them away. Oh, you want my signature? Okay. Bye. Go, get someone else to do it, I'm too busy. In 2016, she further added fuel to the fire when she shared a photo of a young fan wearing a dress inspired by Rihanna's Wile E. Coyote themed costume that she had worn at an awards show a few years prior. She wrote, "Dark Thought Rises" with the hashtag PromBat. She shared that post with millions of people, alienating countless fans and ruining one fan's prom memories for the rest of their lives. By the way, I looked it up. If someone calls you a thought, kick them as hard as you can in the worst place that you can find. Fans may have turned on her, but she has yet to be officially cancelled, so I don't know, she really needs to be, so let's get on that. Number 5, Tom Cruise. While Tom may be an action movie star and was once a young Hollywood heartthrob, he's got a massive temper since day one. According to both former assistants as well as several co-stars from Tom's past, Cruise is a regular toddler and is known to throw tantrums, being set off by the smallest thing. His former manager, Eileen Berlin, presented Tom with a gift on his 19th birthday. She gave him an album of teen magazine articles written about him, and apparently that set him off. He told his manager that he considered himself himself an adult, not a teen idol, and threw the book right in her face. Another example of Tom's aggression was on display during the filming of his recent Top Gun sequel, Maverick. During the time, Tom and the rest of the film crew were tasked to shoot on an actual aircraft carrier, still in use by the US military. One of the crew posted on Twitter calling out the audacity of Tom's behavior. They tweeted, "Tom Cruise was really on our ship telling people not to talk or even look at him." After a few choice words, the crewmate made it very clear that Tom was not welcome aboard their vessel. These are just two examples though. Tom has blown up on film crews several times in the past, to the point where his Mission Impossible 2 co-star was constantly scared of Tom on set and what he may freak out about next. This dude's still making movies though, so hey Hollywood, kick him out and cancel him please, it's time. Number 4, Jared Leto. Jared Leto is an interesting fella. He started his own religious group, he brings a new meaning to the word method acting, and let's just face it, this guy sucks. Over the past few years, reports from Jared's fellow actors are anything but positive. During his time as the Joker, he left his fellow castmates used adult devices, pig heads, and live snakes in their trailers as so-called gifts. He was trying to stay method as the Joker, but anyone on the receiving end of that gift, well, probably wished that he would just chill out. On top of that, he's been known to stay in character, meaning that if he's playing someone angry or silent, well, that's how he's gonna be the entire time. This guy hasn't really been questioned for his actions at any point in recent history, only ever being called a weirdo and just kinda leaving it at that. With his career still well on the rise, here's hoping that Jared will eventually be called out for good and added to Hollywood's do not hire list. Number 3, Jon Hamm. The Madman star doesn't just look like your typical college jock. Turns out he actually was one in the early 90s. Jon took part in a hazing incident at the University of Texas in 1991 that led to Jon receiving criminal charges. The lawsuit was filed by a member of the Fraternal Society organization who claims to have been severely injured, dragged by a hammer, and had his pants set on fire. The person also claims that Jon was involved until, quote, the very end. Criminal records show that Jon was charged for this incident at the time, receiving probation and an official charge of hazing. He participated in all the classic hazing activities, some good, but mostly just downright degrading. While this took place way back when, Jon's roles, combined with his supposed cold shoulder default towards his fellow co-stars, has landed him on the must-cancel list. Number 2, Morgan Freeman. The voice of God himself, Morgan Freeman has been a soothing soul for many, many years. To this day, families can hear Morgan narrate the world around them in an immersive 360 IMAX screen at the Science Center in Toronto. He may be a comfort to some, but according to a few women, Morgan is their nightmare. Morgan has been accused of inappropriate behavior on multiple occasions between 1991 and 2015. According to one production assistant from the film Going in Style, which is a bank heist movie starring Freeman, Michael Caine, and Alan Arkin, Morgan subjected her to unwanted touching and comments about her figure and clothing on a near daily basis. Lend me your ear. This move is rarely received well. Get yourself a new move, or better yet, don't have a move. Just walk up and say hi and show her your Beanie Baby collection. Be normal. According to her, in one instance, Freeman attempted to lift her skirt and asked to see her underclothes. She was not the only one to speak out, however. A senior member of production staff on the movie Now You See Me 2 told CNN that Freeman harassed her and her female assistant on numerous occasions, making similar comments on figure and clothes. I could go on and on with more and more examples, but just to save some time and boil it down for you, Morgan Freeman is creepy, and I'm sorry to say, but this guy needs to retire for good as soon as possible. And at number 1, it is, yes, at number 1, it's Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle dominated the comedy scene in the 1990s and early 2000s. His stand-up was considered to be the most gut-busting and entertaining around, and his role in films like The Nutty Professor, Robin Hood Men in Tights, and the cult classic Half-Baked, he took a bit of a break from starring in films to focus on his family and his true passion, stand-up comedy. Despite being on stage for over 12 years though, Dave never really learned to follow suit with the times. There were certain topics that just became rude to joke about, and many jokes considered to be funny in the 80s and 90s have not aged well. Unfortunately, that seems to be all the material that Dave has. In one of his most recent Netflix specials, he made jokes aimed at the LGBTQ+ community. Jokes that are not worth quoting or repeating or googling, just none of it. They were rough enough to have Dave's fans turn on him immediately. While he was canceled by his fans, Netflix actually defended the comedian, claiming he had artistic freedom even after a group of Netflix employees and transgender advocates staged a virtual eventual walkout. The co-CEO Ted Sarandos, who released the statement, later admitted that he handled the situation poorly. "Oh, did you, Ted? Did you accidentally defend a man who was making fun of gay people? Oh gosh darn it, oopsie doopsies." The fact that this man is still allowed to make money off of his specials, or even perform in general, has the #1 spot of we should cancel him.
But coming in at number 10, it's Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson is an actor who has been around for a long time. He is an incredibly talented actor, being in huge franchises like the Dark Knight trilogy and Star Wars, not to mention the many awards he has received for his acting. Despite all that though, he really shocked the world when he publicly admitted in an interview that he once wanted to indiscriminately end the lives of specifically black people after a female friend of his was ruthlessly attacked by a black person. This was about 40 years ago. Speaking to The Independent about how he got into one of his characters for a film, he said, quote, "I went up and down areas with a kosh, hoping I'd be approached by somebody. I'm ashamed to say that. And I did it for maybe a week, hoping some black something would come out of a pub and have a go at me about something, you know? So that I could, and I have to leave the rest up to your imagination of what he could do." But needless to say, many people were pretty furious. Had it been a lesser actor, this may have spelled out the end of his career, yet because Neeson admitted this action in a seemingly apologetic and remorseful way, he was actually hailed by some people as being courageous for admitting and seeking forgiveness. Some people, but not everyone. Despite many people having no sympathy for Neeson's actions, the actor seems to have simply walked away from the entire incident unscathed. It seems a mixture of his status as one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood and the fact that he confessed himself, apologized later, and sought forgiveness on his own has saved him from being cancelled. Number 9. Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller had been having a really good steady climb up the ladder of Hollywood, killing it in Perks of Being a Wallflower, getting a large role in the Fantastic Beasts series, and set to star in The Flash as the lead superhero. But then, Miller seemed to go off the deep end. While they have recently issued a public apology saying that they are suffering from complex mental health issues, there have been a string of incidents that will likely ultimately mean that we may not see much of the actor going forward. Starting in 2020 when they were in an altercation with a woman outside a bar in Iceland, we then move on to 2022. Miller was arrested and charged after they got agitated by people singing karaoke at a bar in Hawaii, which led to the actor yelling obscenities, getting physical, and lunging at a woman. Then, in that same month, also in Hawaii, Miller got a restraining order filed against them by a couple after Miller burst into their bedroom, threatening the male victim, and then took some of their belongings, including social security cards, a wallet, passport, license, and bank cards. The next month, in April, the actor was charged and arrested after they got upset and threw a chair at someone, and then we fast forward to June when Miller is accused of having an upsetting relationship with a young woman named Dakota Eyes. This was all followed that same month by another parent who sought legal action after Miller, quote, menaced their family and acted inappropriately. Then it went to another level when in August, Ezra was accused of burglary. As you can probably tell, the whole thing is a lot, even by Hollywood standards, but yet Ezra is still starring in one of the most anticipated superhero films of this year, although he probably won't be starring in anything going forward. Number 8. Kanye West. The thing about Kanye West is that despite his many offenses, of which there have been many, we all know that this isn't the way the guy has always been. And according to those who know the rapper and fashion designer, he is clearly dealing with some pretty prominent issues regarding his mental health. For the things he's said and done, he is almost like shadow cancelled, where people don't really support the artist himself or his newest works, but tons of people still bump his tunes and just find his newest offenses entertaining more than anything else. People especially love and still listen to his older stuff, and because of that, Kanye obviously can still go around doing what he does. If you have seen the artist in recent interviews or when he has spoken at fashion shows, or if you have listened to anything he said recently, I think it's safe to say that Kanye is sick, as in actually dealing with some serious issues. Of course, it doesn't excuse his actions, for which he really should be cancelled for, but what I think he really needs is help. Serious professional help, which is probably true for Ezra Miller too, given the sheer amount of things he's done. Number 7. Ellen. The star talk show host and comedian Ellen DeGeneres was once one of the most beloved celebrities around. Her quirky style, her outspoken political views, and her friendly demeanor often went down well with mostly everyone. Her show was built on her kindness, and the endless stream of A-list entertainers she always had on it also showed how well liked she was in Hollywood. But a bit more recently, the tune Ellen has begun to change. According to the complaints, Ellen's management team was often demanding, domineering, and created a toxic work environment, and some were even accused of racism, bullying, and physical mistreatment. The complaints, though, later spilled over to Ellen herself. But what has also come to light is the way she's treated other celebs while literally being filmed on the show. For example, pressuring a pregnant Mariah Carey into revealing that she was pregnant when she wasn't ready to do so by pressuring her to drink champagne. Or when she made Taylor Swift seemingly have a meltdown as she made fun of the amount of Hollywood men who Swift has had relationships with, and then made her go through male celebrities saying whether she has or has not had some kind of interaction with them. While such accusations would usually be enough for other celebrities to be cancelled immediately, Ellen addressed the problems, issued apologies to disgruntled staff, and was relatively unfazed. Sure, her show did eventually come to an end after an epic run, but that wasn't because she was cancelled, it's because she ended the show. Number 6. Jared Leto. Ever since all the way back in 2005, Jared Leto has been facing serious allegations of extremely inappropriate and honestly kinda sick behavior against women of various ages. It's the very reason that DCU director James Gunn has reportedly refused to allow Leto back to reprise his role as the Joker in the franchise going forward. But despite the allegations, which have been coming up for a long time now, he has never seemed to take any kind of hit. He has never faced charges, he has never been outed during the Me Too movement, he hasn't ever been cancelled, and in fact, a lot of people seem to really like this actor. Jared Leto continues to enjoy huge popularity among his fans and even those who are just casual moviegoers. Most other actors would never survive accusations like the ones he has received, but Leto seems to just keep on walking along as if nothing happened and no one bats an eye. Number 5. Gina Carano. Now, I don't believe that having a political opinion that isn't the majority should have you canceled. That's on the side of ridiculous. It stands against free speech and it's pretty undemocratic. That being said though, comparing the division between Republicans and Democrats to World War II Europe and the atrocities that happened there is just downright stupid and you are bound to receive backlash. Gina Carano, the former MMA fighter turned Mandalorian star, enraged some fans with a series of politically charged social media posts, including the one I just mentioned in February 2021. Removing the problematic words that would get this video demonetized, her Instagram post read, quote, "Most people today don't realize that to get to the point where soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views?" Answer to that question is, it's very different, Gina. But she didn't back down, and it only got worse when she said on Twitter that her preferred pronouns are beep bop boop, which she defended by saying that she was, quote, "exposing the bullying mentality of the mob that has taken over the voices of many genuine causes." And she decided to do that by openly mocking the LGBTQ+ community. Not too much later, the hashtag Fire Gina Carano began trending on Twitter, and Disney severed ties with the actress. Her management company, United Talent Agency, also dropped her, but yet Carano turned to her pals on the right and worked on Terror on the Prairie, produced by the Daily Wire, a conservative media company. So she's not fully cancelled, but do you think she should be? That's the real question. Number 4. Nick Cannon. Back in 2020, a podcast recording featuring actor, show host, and celebrity father of like 30 children, Nick Cannon, making several comments that many deemed incredibly insensitive, but specifically anti-Semitic. Cannon also discussed offensive conspiracy theories that focused on Jewish people specifically as well. Now, when news of these recordings spread and the anger of the people continued to grow, Cannon was still allowed to continue his work on The Masked Singer, but his longtime producing partner, Viacom CBS, ended their relationship with the actor, who was hosting his incredibly popular Wild and Out under the production company. This meant the star could no longer host Wild and Out. Now, after the scandal broke, Cannon did publicly apologize, and he even met with rabbis and gave money to a Jewish organization. And likely because of that, in 2021, Viacom CBS responded to his efforts by reinstating him as the host of Wild and Out. I personally think he just needs to stop producing so many damn children, but do you think his actions deserved greater repercussions? Number 3. Chris Brown. I'm actually surprised by how popular the R&B star Chris Brown still is. As most people know, the singer faced extreme scrutiny after multiple reports confirmed that he had a brutal physical altercation with his former partner and fellow musician, Rihanna. Most of us have seen the pictures of Rihanna's face after the fact. He even pled guilty to the incident and was required to perform community service. Now sure, Brown expressed remorse for his actions towards Rihanna, but then he returned to releasing songs and albums with actual success. The worst part is that his success stories were also reported alongside articles that he had even more similar experiences with other women who also publicly outed him. Despite the controversy though, Brown won an award for male R&B artist at the AMAs in 2022, which was met with some boos, but he walked away fairly unscathed and continues to go on as if nothing ever happened. Number 2. Louis C.K. Still a success in his own bubble for a good chunk of time, Louis C.K. was among the biggest names in comedy, but that changed when a group of female comics revealed his actions performed in the bedroom without their consent. Now Louis even admitted to his actions following the publication of an investigative story in the New York Times in 2017. A detailed statement on what he did and an apology to the women he did it to was released, and the scandal led to the scrapping of his movie I Love You Daddy, a TV deal with FX, and a large number of pre-booked performances. It cost the comic about $35 million in earnings, and his management and publicists dropped him. But yet, Louis C.K. has continued touring and playing venues including Madison Square Garden to fans who really just couldn't care less. Now, Louis distributes his own material, so he's continued to have comedy specials which can be bought directly from his website, and he even purchased a commercial spot during an episode of SNL. He also won the 2022 Best Comedy Album Grammy for Sincerely Louis C.K., but still he did take a hit and he isn't likely to be making a comeback to what he once had. Do you think that's good enough punishment, or should the repercussions for his actions be more severe as well? And finally, in at number 1 is Will Smith. Now listen, I think just like Ezra Miller and Kanye West, acting legend Will Smith is having a tough go in his personal life that is kind of bleeding out into the public. Will Smith has been one of my favorite actors for years, but none of that makes it okay to storm a stage and get physical with a performer, whether they make fun of your wife's alopecia or not. But that's exactly what he did at the 2022 Oscars to comedian Chris Rock, who compared Jada Pinkett Smith to G.I. Jane as a joke without knowing that she did suffer from the hair loss. Smith then sat back down and yelled the infamous "keep my wife's name out of your effing mouth," as we all know. Now Judd Apatow, Jim Carrey, Amy Schumer, Wanda Sykes, and Zoe Kravitz, plus others, all publicly spoke out against the actor's actions, though others came to his defense, including Tiffany Haddish, Denzel Washington, and Jamila Jamil. Now Sony is said to have put Bad Boys 4 on hold, and Netflix has backburnered Fast and Loose, and CAA, his agency, also reportedly discussed dropping Smith as a client, but ultimately they did not. But for this one, it seems that Smith felt almost instant regret, as evident in his Oscar acceptance speech later on in the awards show. He also ended up quitting the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, and the Academy then banned him from the ceremony for 10 years. It remains to be seen what will happen with his career going forward and the boatload of projects he is attached to. Do you think he should come back from this one, or do you think that he should kind of just stay off in the dark?
And at number 10, we have Nikki DeJagger. Nikki DeJagger, aka Nikki Tutorials, famously appeared on The Ellen Show after her coming out video went viral on YouTube. But although she said it was an honor to be on The Ellen Show, Nikki admitted later in a Dutch television interview the experience wasn't what she thought it would be. Sebastian Williams found that clip and translated it, and our girl Nikki spilled some serious tea and really did not hold back. She called Ellen distant and cold, saying Ellen didn't even come and say hi before the show. Nikki even said in another interview that Ellen did not let her use the bathroom. Apparently the Jonas Brothers were on the show the same day, and Ellen didn't have enough for everyone. And after exposing Ellen like that, obviously she will not be asked on the show again. And at number 9, Brad Garrett. The Everybody Loves Raymond star called out Ellen in a tweet in the midst of her scandal. He wrote on Twitter that her behavior was not a shock to him, or anyone else in the industry for that matter. He replied to a tweet about the Ellen scandal and added, quote, "Sorry, but it comes from the top at the Ellen Show. No more than one who were treated horribly by her. Common knowledge." DeGeneres sends emotional apology to Staff Variety. Garrett had appeared on the show multiple times before he made his statements, so we know whatever he heard was definitely true. However, since he was one of the few celebrities that publicly called out Ellen, I would assume that he will not be asked back, but considering his statements, it seems like he probably didn't want to be anyway. And at number 8, Caitlyn Jenner. If you watched the last interview Ellen did with Caitlyn shortly after her transition, you definitely know why Ellen will not be having her back on the show. And apparently Ellen actually told Caitlyn that she was blacklisted. In her memoir, The Secrets of My Life, Caitlyn took the time to call out Ellen specifically for, quote, alienating her from the LGBTQ community by not allowing Caitlyn to come on her show. But it seems Caitlyn alienated herself from the community after her 2015 Ellen interview. In that interview, Ellen asked about Caitlyn's stance on gay marriage. She replied, quote, "I have to admit that I remember 15 years ago, 20 years ago, whenever it was that whole gay marriage issue came up, I was not for it." But Caitlyn added later, quote, "If that word marriage is important to you, I can go with it." But Caitlyn still seemed apprehensive in her support of same-sex marriage and was pressed by Ellen on the issue. In at number 7, Lea Thompson. Lea Thompson, best known for her roles in the Back to the Future franchise, publicly agreed with Brad Garrett's sentiments on Ellen. On July 31st, after Garrett had made his statements against Ellen, People magazine wrote an article about it. Thompson then replied to a tweet about that article and simply added on, quote, "True story, it is." And this tweet is actually still up, and the replies are all agreeing that Ellen is definitely not what she seems, with many saying they always felt Ellen was two-faced. And at number 6, Sherri Shepherd. The former The View panelist is allegedly blacklisted from Ellen's show because of comments she made on The View that were against same-sex marriage. A source close to the situation said, quote, "When Sherri was on The View, she used to get booked on the Ellen show all the time. After she came out on The View taking a stance against gay marriage, the Ellen show refused to book Sherri. Adding a reason was never given, but it was easy to put it together." The source added that Ellen is a hypocrite. Quote, "She said she can be friends with people who have different views from hers, yet she won't give those people her platform and block them from appearing on her show." Halfway at number 5, Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn was allegedly banned from being on the show for a short time, but they were able to work out their issues, and Vince is now on the show from time to time. The blacklisting took place after Vaughn made a joke about being gay in the trailer of the 2011 film The Dilemma. Ellen refused to have Vaughn on the show after Anderson Cooper came on and expressed his anger towards that joke. However, everyone was able to make amends later on. But some people think it's not true that he was ever actually banned, that he simply just had no movies to promote during that time. I'll let you guys be the judge. And at number 4, Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin has beef with a lot of people, and unsurprisingly, Ellen is one of them. Sources say that Ellen didn't allow Katie to come on the show because of their feud. According to Griffin, it all started when Ellen opened her show with a monologue about how, quote, mean Griffin could be. Apparently Griffin heard it from her dressing room and said, quote, "I was in the dressing room like, you're another woman comic, come on." Apparently they also butted heads over Joan Rivers. Kathy was a huge fan while Ellen was not. Griffin exposed later how she was banned from the show, but Ellen replied in W magazine saying, quote, "She did a whole thing that I banned her from the show. I didn't ban her from the show because first you have to be on the show to be banned." Ouch. And at number 3, Kim Burnell. Gospel singer Kim Burnell was set to appear on the Ellen show with Pharrell to promote their collaboration. But Ellen banned her before that because she had made homophobic comments in the past. Ellen commented on the situation saying, quote, "She made a statement she was doing a Facebook Live and she said some very not nice things about gay people. So I didn't feel that it was good of me to have her on the show to give her a platform after she was saying things about me." Pharrell commented that he disagreed with the statements Pharrell made, but said that we should all love each other regardless. Even adding that, quote, "Sometimes the divisive stuff works in life." And at number 2, Neil Breen. Neil Breen is an Australian radio host who has a popular radio show called 4BC Breakfast. And while the reports about Ellen were surfacing, he decided to speak about his experience with her. And spoiler alert, it was not good. He says he met Ellen in 2013 while he was a producer on the Australian Today show, as his team was doing a sit-down interview with her. Breen exposed that he received a very detailed set of rules on how to guide the interview and how to act around her. He said that her team basically took over the whole interview and controlled practically every aspect of it. Allegedly, one of her producers even said, quote, "You don't talk to Ellen, you don't approach her, you don't look at her." He was never able to have an interaction with Ellen herself, but added, quote, "The people who worked with Ellen walked on eggshells the whole time." And in at number 1, Dakota Johnson. I doubt that Dakota will actually be blacklisted from Ellen's show because Dakota is a successful actress that will need to promote her movies on the show. However, considering Ellen's spat with Dakota on her show is really what started Ellen's downfall in the first place, she will probably avoid it as long as possible. The spat between them, of course, was about Dakota's birthday party. Basically, Ellen called Dakota out for not inviting her to the party, but Dakota clapped back that she actually did invite Ellen. She later awkwardly called Tig Notaro her favorite comedian, which was kind of a dig to Ellen. And there's also this gem of a quote from the interview where Dakota flat out says, quote, "I didn't even know you liked me," to Ellen. Honestly, I still cannot watch this interview without cringing.
Starting off the list at number 10 is Jay Quan. He made a name for himself in the music industry after rapping about everybody in the club getting tipsy. You remember? Everybody in the club get tipsy. What's the next part? Something like that, right? I don't remember, something like that, but you guys remember that was his song. Anyways, his career was on the rise the same way his songs were on the charts, but then he disappeared from the music world and the public eye altogether. His own friend and manager, Dorian Washington, revealed in March 2010 that he kept trying to call and email him and hadn't seen him since August 2009. His label issued a statement asking fans to help locate the rapper. They even set up a special Twitter account called @WhereIsJaquan. After all the chaos, his manager finally wrote a statement saying, "I am very happy to let everyone know that I personally spoke with Jaquan today and he is okay. He was taking some time to himself as he sometimes does, not realizing that people would start to worry after a while." How could you not realize something like that? At least just tell your family. Coming in next at number 9 is Amanda Bynes. It is not a secret that she went off the handlebars back in 2012 with behavior that ended with her on Hollywood's blacklist. Just a few examples to refresh your memory. She was arrested for drunk driving, charged with a hit and run, locked herself in a West Hollywood dressing room for 2 hours, got thrown out of an Equinox after removing her shirt and exercising in a strapless push-up bra, and photographed multiple times smoking unknown substances in her car. These headlines kept her in the limelight for a while before she basically vanished. She was out of the public eye completely and people wondered what had happened to her. Turns out she ended up getting admitted into a mental institution where she worked on her sobriety and spent some years working out all of her legal issues. Fans were thrilled to see her make a return last year in 2018 with a magazine cover story saying that she is sober and ready to get back into acting. At number 8 is Dave Chappelle. Comedy fans saw him everywhere in the early 2000s when he was starring on his comedy show Chappelle's Show. The entire show was headlined by him and he had some other comedian guests to help him out. His series was successful, being nominated for an Emmy and catching the eyes of other rival networks. His representatives went to negotiate a contract for season 3 and later reported that Dave, I quote, signed a new development deal with Comedy Central that could have yielded him as much as $50 million. After that headline made news, he went missing. No one knew what happened to him or the show and how he could just walk away from a $50 million contract. Fans later learned that he was in South Africa attending a spiritual retreat. He continued to remain in hiding and focus on his personal life until he made a successful return back in 2016. Next up at number 7 is Fan Bingbing. She is one of China's highest paid stars and was in the Hollywood spotlight in 2014 after she starred in X-Men Days of Future Past. Her face was everywhere and she was walking every red carpet to promote the film, but before we knew it, the media was reporting that she suddenly disappeared. Rumors started and were later confirmed that she was busted for committing tax evasion. The Global Times revealed that Fan reported an income of $1.5 million in a small contract and $7.5 million in a larger contract, which was illegally filed as tax-free income. She was placed in secret detention, which explains why she mysteriously disappeared out of nowhere, but she was eventually released after her company agreed to pay $130 million back in taxes and fines. Once she emerged back in the spotlight, she issued an apology saying, "I am deeply ashamed and guilty about what I have done. My sincere apologies to you." Swiping the number 6 spot is Governor Mark Sanford. I feel like the governor counts as a celebrity. Right? I mean, like, he's really well known. Regardless, he's on this list, and back in 2009, he was the governor of South Carolina. People were completely thrown off when he suddenly disappeared for 6 days without telling anyone where he went. I feel like if you're a governor, you can't do that. After the first 6 days, he started telling people that he was going on a hike on the Appalachian Trail. However, he was really going to Argentina to visit his mistress, a woman named Maria Belen Chapur. Once the story surfaced, he admitted to his secret affair and returned to the US and asked for forgiveness. Well, he kinda begged for it. And for those wondering, after the disappearance mystery was solved, his marriage did fall apart. As it should. Halfway through the list at number 5 is Richard Stanley. Now this man isn't well known to some, but his story of disappearance is really interesting. If you've ever heard of the movie The Island of Dr. Moreau, he was the director and got himself fired just 3 days into production. According to the Telegraph, he was supposed to be escorted onto a flight from the set in Australia and fly back to Los Angeles, but when the plane arrived at LAX, he wasn't on it. Some of the extras from the movie ended up finding him a month later living in the jungle. Turns out he left the airport and made his way through the jungle by living off of coconuts, yams, and his personal marijuana stash. No, this is not a joke. What's even crazier is that he teamed up with the extras to create a plan to get back onto the movie set by dressing up as a mutant dog and blending in with the background actors. Like, what? I know this story doesn't sound real, you guys, but it is. I swear. Like, the source is down below. Here we are at number 4 with Randy Quaid. He was once an Academy Award nominee actor before he disappeared from the limelight. In 2010, his disappearance started making headlines, revealing that he and his wife, Evie Quaid, fled to Canada to try and make a deal with a group called Hollywood Star Whackers, who allegedly were out to kill them. But on their escape to Canada, they got involved in some illegal activities. They used fake credit cards to pay for hotel bills, and also lived in one of their former homes, which they no longer owned or had rights to. According to CNN, they were granted permission to stay in Canada in 2011. His wife was able to get her Canadian citizenship because her dad was born in Canada, but Randy's request was denied in 2013. The actor was finally detained by Canadian immigration officials in October 2015 and was set to be deported back to the US later that month. However, he and his wife were arrested for trying to sneak back into the US through Vermont. So it's basically just a big show. Everyone always runs off to Canada because we're so nice over here. We'll just let you come in. Alright guys, at number 3 is Margot Kidder. She was a huge star back in 1978 after starring as Lois Lane in the Superman movie, but a missing persons report was filed after she disappeared for 4 days back in April 1996. No one knew what was going on until police found her hiding out in the bushes of a suburban California home. Police say that she was, I quote, dirty, frightened, and paranoid with bruises and scratches all over her body. She ended up being taken to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. When she was discovered, it was reported that she'd actually cut off all of her own hair with a razor blade to try and alter her appearance so that people wouldn't recognize her. She later spoke on the incident, saying that she suffered from manic depression and spent years working on it. Sadly, she did pass away on May 2018 at 69 years old as a result of drug overdose. This one didn't have a happy ending. Taking our number 2 spot on our list is Kasem. The legendary radio host of American Top 40 suddenly went missing, and his children reported it to the police, saying that they could not find him. It was then in May 2014 that the judge ordered that his whereabouts be disclosed. The order was made because his daughter Carrie was named his temporary conservator. She had expressed fear that he was taken by his wife Jean, who had an ongoing battle with the entire family. The radio host was suffering from Lewy body disease, and Carrie thought her mom took him out of the country or to an Indian reservation to seek treatment. A missing persons report was filed with the Santa Monica police, but he was reported to be found in the state of Washington not long after. Sadly, he died a month later at the age of 82, and his family drama continued on long after his death, still making headlines. At number 1 is DB Cooper. He only became famous for hijacking an aircraft in the Northwest United States back in 1971. TV show plots, songs, and books have all been based on the legend of this man for many years, including the movie Without a Paddle. The craziest part about the story is that he's actually an unidentified man. His real identity still remains a mystery to this day, so DB Cooper is just the name that he's been given. On Thanksgiving Eve back in 1971, he hijacked a plane saying he had explosives in his possession and demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes in addition to a truck when they landed at the airport. Authorities did pay out the ransom and gave him the parachutes. However, before they got to the airport, he jumped from the plane 10,000 feet near Mount St. Helens in Washington state. He was never found, and in July 2016, the FBI declared that they were no longer pursuing him. So basically, he could be out there walking the streets right now. He could be watching this. Hi, DB.